Really need to start talking about life post-college. It low-key sucks. I just graduated from the University of Michigan 2 months ago, and I've been living in the city of Chicago. Nobody talks about the 9 to 5 grind. Literally be working from 9 to 5 for the rest of your life until you die, basically. The monotony of it every day is awful. Live for the weekends or try to make your life fun, fresh, and flirty during the week, which is hard because you're just exhausted. How much taxes get taken out of your salary? Got my first paycheck and I was like, oh, that's it? Did I read what my offer was correctly? Because that was not it. Like, this is not how much I signed up to get. But especially in a city like Chicago, everything is so expensive. Taxes, restaurant, there's a 3% surcharge. This paycheck, post-taxes, top of the prices of Chicago, you're still poor. It is so hard to make friends. You're not in clubs. You're not seeing same people every day other than work. It's very difficult to meet people. I have to kind of go out of your way in order to actually try to make friends. Everyone is usually pretty busy, so even if you want to try to make friends, you have to take time to go and do that and go and do stuff in order to make the friends that you want to make. No one has time for each other. You live in your first apartment. You don't realize what you don't have. You don't have a can opener. I have 12 cans of tuna fish, and I don't have a can opener to open it because it never occurred to me to ever buy a can opener. I had to go to the store and buy batteries the other day. I don't have a battery cabinet like I do at home. Let me know if you want more.
So, Hannah, I had a mixed reaction because there were parts of this video that made me really roll my eyes and cringe, and I wasn't very sympathetic at all. But there were things that she identified that I actually thought were legitimate complaints or like things that she's noticed about modern life that are actually, not great. So what was your take?
I think my take is going to surprise you or maybe some of our audience listeners, but I hard vibed with her. I remember feeling exactly like this when I graduated, and I've been out of school, oh gosh, like 11 years now. So it's been a while back, but I didn't think I was somebody who graduated that was very coddled, right? I was an oldest child. I worked really hard. I interned and worked and volunteered and performed all through college. So I was very, very busy. I wasn't just a scumbag when I graduated. I got a job right away. But I remember feeling like I'd been hit by a semi-truck by life. I did not feel like society or my parents had really prepared me for that transition. I found it to be very, very lonely. I went from having, a ton of friends around me, a really great social life, friends who lived right next to me because, we were all going to the same college, to living with strangers, working with strangers, my friends they were grinding in their first jobs. We had crazy hours. I didn't even have a 9 to 5 when I first graduated because I graduated in 2011 during the Great Recession fallout. Nobody had full-time jobs. We were all just doing like side work, hustling, hourly wages. So it was really tough to see people very poor. I had no idea how to manage money. Like, I remember my first big girl interview I went in for, and they asked me how much salary I needed, and I was just like, I don't know, $25,000 a year, because I thought that sounded like a lot. And then I told my parents that, and they were like, Hannah, you cannot live on $25,000 a year. But I had no concept of money really, because even though I had been working throughout college, I'd never actually paid bills. My parents had paid for everything. So yeah, I found myself very much in her shoes, and it's sort of embarrassing to admit, but I like that she brought this up because I don't think we do a good job of helping people transition from this period of your life. And, maybe it's because I was homeschooled, but I also, once I did get into a 9 to 5 job after, 6 or 7 months out of school, I found it incredibly demoralizing, like having to just sit there for 8 hours for no reason because I was really fast at the work, not being able to work outside if it was nice, like all of that just felt really very inhumane to me, for lack of a better term. Like, I was like, why can't we just do things differently? Like, I don't mind working, but why is it structured like this? That couldn't it be done so much better? And I still think that to a large degree. That's why I'm a huge proponent of remote work when at all possible. I think that there's just better ways of doing things than often what we have set up. And the last thing I'll add is, we don't teach people to go to college for careers that they want. I think that oftentimes we just say, just go to college, right? That's the narrative people are told, is you just need to get a degree and then you'll be able to make good money and you're going to have a great life and everything will just be handed to you and fall into place. And that's not true. A lot of people get degrees that don't pay off. And then a lot of people get degrees where it does lead to a job, but they don't actually like the work. They don't actually have the ability to see what their day-to-day would look like in that chosen profession until after they're already out of school, which is crazy. That's why we need things like apprenticeships. I went to school for a very expensive degree to work in music and hated it, and then had to figure out how to parlay into another career I would actually like and find meaningful, which was really hard to do and took a lot of extra work. And so I think that's another problem, is that we don't give people the ability to sort of envision what they want their life to look like, what the options are, and to choose adequately. So then they get out and they're miserable.
Yeah, I guess I have a slightly different take, but I agree with a good bit of what you said. I don't have a ton of sympathy for the complaints about, oh, woe is me, I hate working a 9 to 5, in part because you don't have to work a 9 to 5. There are literally so many options, and especially with labor so in demand right now, there are so many. You could drive for Uber. You would have a remote job where you can work from outside, off hours. Like, there's so many non-traditional work options. 15 years ago, yeah, you would have just been stuck in a 9 to 5, but you're really not forced into that. And then even if you are, it's like the labor conditions that most people throughout all of human history worked in. And now this idea that you're like traumatized or just so deeply unhappy with sitting in an air-conditioned office working at a desk for 8 hours a day, I just don't have a ton of sympathy for that, to be honest, that aspect of it. I think when she goes off about her taxes, I totally feel that. I relate to that so much. Like, when I graduated from college and my first job, I was making $50,000. I like divided that by 12, and it's like, oh, well, that's how much I'll have. But then I got to like subtract 10% for taxes or something. And LOL, you thought it was way more, but so I will say though, how many Gen Z TikTokers do you think support progressive policies that involve huge taxes on everyone? Like, do you think they're supporting limited government where we could have a 5% flat tax? I don't think so. I don't know this woman specifically, but though the most interesting part, I'm sorry, I have no sympathy about like, I didn't know I needed a can opener, so just go buy one. Like, that's not a big deal. I don't have a place to put batteries. I think you can figure that one out. But the social stuff I thought was the most interesting complaint about this, because I think that rang so true in high school and in college, whether it's sports teams or classmates or clubs that you're in. You have this built-in social structure to make friends and to feel like a part of a community. But once you leave that in the world today, because, this is the whole book about bowling alone, right? Like, the bonds and institutions that helped build friendships. Like, I don't have a ton of friends outside that I don't know from work or have a family connection to, or I've lived somewhere new for a year and a half now, and I've struggled to meet people. I finally have made some friends and met some people, but it's like, it is difficult because the way that our social lives have changed and the way that our connections are made is so different now. I think there's also an aspect of it for men that's slightly unique, but for women too, it's like, you don't have the same. I felt like a part of a community when I was in a high school, right? Where people knew each other, where we all had common interests, common events going on. In college, not so much, because I went to a massive college with more than 30,000 students, but I was a part of clubs and groups and subgroups where I made friends and had connections with people. Then it's like you go out into the real world, quote unquote, and you have your work, you connect with people through your work. But if you don't go to church, some people get that through church, that kind of community, that making friends, you really have to seek it out in other ways. It's not like it can't be done, but it takes very conscious and deliberate putting yourself out there, getting out of your comfort zone. And so it can be very isolating. And I think a lot of people do feel like they don't have friends in the same way they used to when they were in college or whatever, now that they're in the workforce. And I think that she's identified something real there that we've got to kind of figure out, because it's definitely having a bad effect on a lot of young people.
Yeah, I found it really detrimental. I had a hard couple years when I first graduated college. I also, because of that, fell into like a really bad relationship just because I was lonely and like wanted people around, to be honest. And I think on top of the difference in schedules and people moving and like their lives just shifting, I think when you graduate college, for many people, it's the first time that like you sort of stand on your own. And I mean that socioeconomically. So up until college, you're mostly around people in high school and college who have similar backgrounds to you, right? Your families are probably in pretty similar positions or places in life because of how we zone schools and things. And then you graduate and it's like, no, now you're just your own person. So for me, I went from having access to a lot of very successful people, a lot of wealthy people, to all of a sudden, like, that wasn't who I was around anymore. I really feel like I started on the bottom rung socially and had to like climb back up in many aspects and sort of earn my own position in the world. And I didn't realize until I had graduated college how much I had benefited from my family and their connections, because we had moved a lot. That wasn't new to me. But every time we would move, I always had immediate friends, people asking me to do things. And I think I thought it was because of me. And really, it was my family. Like, it was their position in the communities, their connections, people, trying to make sure I was accommodated because of that. And when you graduate college, like, you no longer have that. You're just out there on your own. And it really was destabilizing to me in a lot of ways. And, I think that there are things we could do to hopefully make that transition a little bit less isolating, less lonely, less confusing and scary. I've moved several times now in my adult life, and it is still hard to make friends. Moving to Atlanta 2 years ago, I've really benefited mostly just from the political community here. People I either knew online or who I worked with formerly at FEE or who were just politically active and knew of me and my work. And so that's been really wonderful, and I've been able to make a lot of friends. But I will still say, the grind of the day in, day out, I don't see those people every day. I don't talk to those people every day. And so when you go from having roommates and people that you live with and your families that you live with to living on your own, like, that is a new turn of events too. So it really is just a pretty big time of upheaval in people's lives that we don't even address. We don't tell them to like think about it or prepare for it. And I think the reason for that is in prior generations, most of those people were getting married. And in the Deep South, that's still true. You'll see people get married as they're graduating college or right after they graduate college. And so they kind of have this seamless transition into the family life again. And
there's a good bit of that in the Midwest as well, but not in the Northeast where I'm from. Nobody does that there.